Welcome back, DIYers. Today we're going to paint this garage door. Now it's February, and I know where most of you live, it's probably 20 below and snow, but here in the Houston area, it's a nice, warm, sunny day. It's supposed to be about 70, so that's perfect painting weather. And be sure to stick around to the end of this video, because just before the big reveal, I'm going to go over some very important tips on mistakes I made and how you can avoid those. Preparation is key to get a good paint job and get it to stick well. So what do we need to do? Well, first I need to wash this door and get all the grime off of it so that the paint will stick real well to it. And what am I going to use? I'm just using a bucket of soapy water and a scrub brush. We'll get it all cleaned off, and then we'll rinse it down and move on to the next part of the prep. We won't tell the wife I took the cleaner for the glasses. Oh, and if you're looking at this shirt and wondering where I got it, it's available at my Etsy store. I also got some sweatshirts available, and I just put hats on there, so go check that out and get you one. All right, I got that cleaned. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Why didn't I just pressure wash it? Well, I did that once, and I got water all inside. Sheetrock got wet, some of the mud came loose, tape came off. Don't want to go back that way, so that's why I'm hand washing it. One other thing I'm going to do that you haven't seen probably on some of the other videos where they do the garage door is I'm going to paint in here also. And the reason is the garage door is going to be painted this kind of tan cream color. And when I raise the door, I don't want to see these strips of white. So I'm going to clean in here also as part of the prep. So we'll do that and move on to the next part. Okay, I got the garage door all clean, got the grooves inside here cleaned. I cleaned on the inside where this is going to be masked off, and I'm really glad that I did wash and scrub like I did, because I got a lot of faded paint to wash off. First I thought it was soap, but no, it's all the faded paint on here from years of sun. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take and sand the door lightly. I'm probably gonna take like some 220, and all I'm looking to do is just rough the paint up. I'm not looking to take it off. It's an aluminum door. Like I say, I got all that faded paint washed off, and then I'm going to sand it. I'll get a little more of it off, and I'll wipe it down. The reason I'm sanding this is not because I'm not going to primer this, but I do want this paint here to be roughed up so it has good adhesion when I go to spray the new paint on top of it. I'm just using a fine sanding sponge to do this. And the other thing I did is I took the handle off because I don't want to paint it. Got the whole door sanded, I got in these cracks sanded. Now I'm going to rinse it off to get all that dust off, and then we'll move on to our next part of this project. All right, I'm going to wash in these cracks, let this dry, and then we'll start masking off everything. Okay, I said I wasn't going to primer, but well, I am, and I'm going to spot primer with this bonding primer in a rattle can, because there's certain areas where when I was sanding, metal started to show through. So I'm going to just spot primer those, so when I go to paint, the paint will stick to the metal. Okay, I got everything masked off. Got my paint gun loaded. I'm using a 415 because the 517 that came with it I put somewhere and can't find it, so we're just going to go ahead. Got my pressure set, and away we go. Well, I wanted to paint in the grooves, but I ran out of paint. It's the only problem with using 50 foot of hose. I mean, it takes about a quart of paint in there. So I'll have enough maybe to brush it when it's dry. So I'll clean this up and we'll have a final reveal. So I ran out of paint yesterday, and I got some areas that didn't get covered, and I had a run I had to take care of, and I didn't get to paint in the cracks. So I got another 5 gallons, and we're going to redo the door. So here we go. Okay, we're all done painting. If I have to toot my own horn, I must say it came out very well. But before I do the big reveal, I need to go over a couple really important tips with you so you can avoid the mistakes I made. And the first one, and the very biggest one, is make sure you got enough paint. I mean, I ran out of paint. I had maybe a half to 3/4 of a gallon of paint, which if you were brushing and rollering this would have been more than enough, but I was using a sprayer. And as I said earlier, 50 foot of hose, I mean, it takes about a quart of paint in there. So by the time I got to painting and got to the end, I'd run out, because I'd painted a couple other things before I painted the door, you may have noticed in the earlier part of the video. So the second thing, and it has to do with the airless sprayer, and I don't want you to be afraid to use an airless sprayer. It's really not that hard. Realize this is the first time I'd used that airless sprayer there, and so the mistakes I made were simple DIY mistakes that you're going to make, that anybody's going to make when they're first time using something. So learn from my mistakes so that when you use it, you don't have this and your project comes out great the first time. Because if I have to give this a DIY score of difficulty on 1 to 10, 1 being not and 10 being very, for me, in my DIY thinking, I'm going to give it a 4. And half of that, to 2.5 of that, is the airless sprayer. So if you notice back when I was spraying the door, I didn't have very good overlap. And what I mean is, let's say that the spray pattern is 10 inches wide. When you make your first pass and you come back, you should overlap that. Not when you make your second pass, start at the bottom of that 10-inch spray pattern. Because what will happen is where those two meet, which is what I had, you had light areas where the original color of the door, the white, that showed through like nobody's business. But instead, what you need to do is when you make your first pass, you make it, and then as you come back, you should overlap 40 to 50% of your previous pattern, which means 4 to 5 inches of your previous spray will be overlapped with new spray, and it'll get rid of that light area on your paint job. Because if you think about it, when the sprayer is spraying, the central part is where the most of your paint is, and the outer edges are your feathered parts or your thinner areas. So you've got to come back over those to cover that so you get a good even coat. If you go back and watch, you'll see as I sprayed, sometimes I had really good overlap, other times I had terrible overlap. But how I overcame that is the second time I sprayed it, if you watch that again, you'll see I had some areas where I didn't have very good overlap. But the difference was I sprayed a different direction. So the first time I sprayed up and down, the second time I sprayed left to right. It covered everything and it came out beautifully. And then the last tip I can give you is to keep on moving to avoid runs. And what I mean is when you start spraying, start your hand moving before you pull the trigger. And when you're done spraying, let off the trigger and keep moving. If you don't, you're going to get runs. What I mean is if you point the gun at where you're going to spray, pull the trigger, and then start moving, right where you pull that trigger, there's going to be a run. And the same thing is when you come to the end, if you stop and then release the trigger, there's going to be a run. And so if you keep moving, you'll avoid that. And unfortunately, I didn't do that, and I had a run I had to repair. With that, let's get on with the reveal of the finished project. So let me know down in the comments what you think, how'd it come out, what we just scored on a 1 to 10. And if you enjoyed this video of me painting the garage door, I'll have a link up here to the Place series. And so with that, until next time, happy DIY.